Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.
So welcome everyone to the group chat brought to you by Overmark. I'm your host Darrell, and today with me is Xin Wei, and we're gonna be discussing how to manage your exam stress. So I think this period, is really gonna be very tough on us in terms of how much load, the kind of stress that we'll feel. Even the tutors ourselves, we feel the same because when our students go into the exam, we feel like we're going to the exam with them. And I know it's not going to be easy. It's going to be nerve-wracking. But hopefully today, what we share and what we discuss, talking about own personal experience could help you out just to get that stress off your shoulders a bit. Okay, maybe Xin Wei, just for your own story and your own stress or whatever, could you share a bit so that the students have an insight in terms of how you dealt with it?
Yeah, I think everyone experiences stress at some point of their life, but everyone has very different tolerance level, right, to stress. I think I'm quite tolerant to stress, but there are a few points where I have also broken down. This is quite normal, right? It does happen. So I don't know. I think firstly, I think it's just recognizing that everyone experienced that. It happens to everyone. That's nothing to do with am I weak? Am I too not good enough? Things like that, right? Yeah, it happens to everyone, and it's almost like a rite of passage. And then from then on, just gotta pick yourself up the next day. There's the joke online about someone tear paper as I'm gonna quit this, and then the next frame of the meme is they pick up, they're like, just joking, I need to continue. It's almost like I'm sure if you say I'm done, I don't study anymore, but next 10 minutes you're like, okay, let's come back to memorizing this. Yeah, I think it's something like that.
I think for sure, especially in Singapore's pressure cooker kind of education system where everything is graded on a bell curve, it's inevitably that you'll feel the stress because you're compared to your peers. Everything is graded on a bell curve. You have no choice but to compete in this environment. So I think the first thing to recognize is that if you can't change the system or the environment around you, the only thing you can really change is the way you look at and your perception of your situation. So I think that makes a huge difference in terms of stress level. So for myself, right, as much as I'm a tutor now, right, and I'm in the education sector, but I myself as a student, I never really was the studious kind. And maybe I can think of myself that I was I had a bit of smart here and there, especially for subjects that I'm good at. But I'm never really the kind that I would define myself as studious, especially for people that know me. I'm more about all the fun, and stuff. So actually, I suffered quite a lot for my A-levels. O-levels, not so much, but for A-levels, because I was very involved in my school activities and stuff. I neglected my studies a lot. And even in JC too, I remember at the mid-year, I was bottom 10 percentile. And I entered my JC with probably the top 10 percentile in terms of my LR&R5. So that was a huge shock to me, and it became a very stressful period because I realized that O-levels wasn't as easy as A-levels. Oh, big surprise, right? Yeah. So that became a very stressful period for me, and it also taught me a lot of valuable lessons that I hope to share. I think one of the big thing is about coping mechanism, right? You need to have an outlet, and I think that is important. Be it watching shows, be it talking to friends, be it exercising. I think you need to have a space and time for you to get rid of that pent-up stress. I don't think you can just keep bottling everything up and keep moving forward. So if it means having a nice hearty mala meal with your friends to de-stress, go for it. If it means watching a movie, come on, it's 2 hours. Just go for it, right? Come back fresh, right? Or it means you're the kind that you need sleep, having sufficient sleep, go for it. I don't think stress is something that something that you can't manage tangibly. I feel like it's something that the moment you learn how to find a coping mechanism, it becomes a lot easier that way. For me, it was after studying every day, I'll go back and I watch my shows. Then that is sort of my outlet, and it kept me sane, especially during my most stressful periods, weeks before my A-levels. So that was my coping mechanism. But something I also like to share is I always view stress as a two-way two-way sword, I think. So one, the sword pointing towards you is that the stress can kill you because it just keeps you overwhelmed and unable to act. But the other side of the sword tells me that stress actually keeps me motivated to continue whatever I'm trying to do, even though I might not be necessarily enjoying it at that point in time. So for me, I try to view stress as trying to find a good balance rather than to eliminate it, right? Because if you completely feel no stress about it, you don't care about it, it's hard for you to do well, right? But too much stress could be very bad for your mental health. So for me, it's about finding a balance, and that's where the part on the coping mechanism or the outlet comes in. So having a space for you to get rid of that stress, I think that's important. Now, I think I want to move on to the next point beyond our own stories, which we might add in here and there. I think the importance of managing stress cannot be understated. So you need to realize that as much as you studying, right, content, how much you revise, a huge part on your exam is actually about performance, right? We have that friend that say, I choke, I should have done better, right?
sure.
I think a lot of it might be attributed to how their mental state was at that point in time. If they were burnt out, right, or they don't have that confidence anymore, it's going to be tough to do well in the exam, right? So I think managing stress is also important in terms of your performance. If you're experiencing a burnout right before your exam, right, that is possibly the worst state you could be in, right? You're going to have your worst performance, right? And you're just gonna go down the deeper the rabbit hole, feeling more and more depressed. Why did I make this mistake? Why did I make that mistake? And it's not gonna help. So I think having a positive outlook, not say positive, but can-do attitude is more important, especially when you're so near to your exam period. So can't understate how much importance should be placed on taking care of yourself at this point in time, especially so right now. So I know that, exams, we keep saying how important it is. Yes, it's important, but nothing is more important than taking care of yourself. I think that is the bottom line, right? So yourself matters most. All right. Maybe Xin Wei, for you, do you have any points to add in terms of the importance of managing stress?
I think especially for this period, even as someone who don't have to take exam anymore, just by there's a lot of external factor. Like this is like we are in the midst of COVID, and the restriction is like changing every month, and that itself is super uncertain. And I know for like students who are taking national exam, be it O level or A level, I think that that uncertainty is also very scary for them, right? It's like suddenly okay, I can I don't know, study in groups, but then like I rely on this group of friends to give me my support, but then right now I can't meet with a group of friends. I think this kind of changes, like I think there are many examples, but I think this kind of uncertainty is contributing to like the exam itself, like it's adding onto it. So and unfortunately, I think being adaptable will be like the best way out here. As I think in this case, right, like what comes, then you must go around it or like fight it. Like I think just now Darrell got mentioned how we know that one friend who like choked, right? I think it's because stress, like for the bio students listening out there, it's like there's this fight and flight response that we always say. It's like when you encounter stress. But actually there's one more that wasn't in the theory that you always listen, fight and flight. There's one response is freeze. And actually that freeze response is way more common than fight and flight. A lot of people just freeze there, like be it like physically or figuratively. And I think that is indeed like what Darrell say, very scary if you like fall into that stage right before exam, right? I think one thing I could say is that just it's very difficult, I think, like to say like, oh, you have to like figure it out yourself. If you can, of course that would be great. But I think another thing is that I think you can talk to your like parents or teachers or friends. Maybe friends can relate the best. I think talking it out and then realizing that. And I think from our previous podcast, we mentioned how like grades doesn't matter as much. Not that grades don't matter, but when at our phase of life, Darrell and I, a few years, already many years since our O and A level, at least at this point of our life, we look back, we can tell you guys that when you come to our point of life, it really doesn't matter. Like, I can confidently say that it didn't matter now. But maybe if you didn't do, let's say someone didn't do well, and maybe in the next few years they will still feel that, right? That regret and that pain, because it has to be like choosing your school. Maybe you can't do the course that you want in your poly, that kind of thing. But really at this point, like longer term wise, when you look back, it really doesn't matter.
I think something I'd like to add on here straight away, right, that might help you reduce your stress a bit, right, is you cannot have the mentality of letting your grades define you. I think that is one of the most surefire way to feel very stressed out about your grades, because your entire identity on your entire self-worth and self-esteem is tagged to your grade. And if you don't do well, you feel like shit, right? But the truth is, right, this is the education system that we are in, is designed this way because it's efficient. I feel it's efficient, right? Because it's like streaming, categorizing, you move here, you move there.
And select the best people, I guess.
Yeah, in that sense. But this is purely about academics. You need to realize that your life is much bigger than that. Beyond the microscope of Singapore, right? You look beyond the world and you talk to people and you explore things, right? We have the internet now, right? We can literally reach out and we can be resourceful and stuff. There's so many things else other than academics that really matter, right? Things like maybe climate change, things like spending time with your loved one. These are not things that you can measure by grades alone. Now, where do the grades come in? The grades come in a sense that it might help you for your next step in terms of going towards the direction you want to go, like a certain course or a certain JC. But you need to keep in mind, right, that life is not so inflexible. Just because you don't get into the course that you want to, doesn't mean eventually you can't work in the field that you're looking to, right? So for example, if you can't get into aerospace, doesn't mean you will never get into an aerospace company or something like that, right? You realize that life has so much twist and turn, right? That whatever you thought was the defining moment in your life is actually nothing but a fleeting moment, right? I sound so deep, but what I mean is that, right, like you study so hard for this, but actually you realize that, hey, actually this doesn't matter anymore. Like I'm moving on to something else. And you realize that so many of the so-called successful people that you think of nowadays, right, honestly, they don't really say, like, it's not really about doing well on the academics, blah, blah, blah. Okay, I'm not saying that you quote like Mark Zuckerberg, he dropped out of college, then he founded Facebook. No, dropping out of college isn't the recipe for success. But what I'm saying here is that the truly successful people, they are not defined just by the fact that they did well in school. They're defined by their resourcefulness, their ability to connect with people, their vision and things like that. So it goes beyond grades. So don't let your grades define you. I think that's the first thing in terms of what you need to think about. The second thing I want you to consider, right, is a lot of time we are stressed because we are stressed out about the consequence, right? What if I don't do well? What if I fail to get into the JC that I want to? And then the next thing I want you to consider is, why are you so certain that your whatever you're aiming for is going to be the best, right? So life, right, you don't really know what's around the corner, right? Assuming you really go to the JC that you want to, but then you will never know how you will have panned out in another JC, right? There's no guarantee that one choice is better than the other. And the fact is, you will never know what that will turn out to, right? So life is really unpredictable in that sense. So there isn't a guaranteed best option, right? What you think might be best now, maybe you go into the JC, you don't fit into the culture, you have a terrible time. You never know, right? So all I'm saying is that don't be too afraid of consequences. Rather, I feel you would want to embrace what comes your way and always give in your best effort. So I don't believe in just aiming to score well for the sake of scoring well. I do believe in always giving your best effort. I think that is something that translates further than just your academics. So whatever you do, as long as you give it your best, I think that's the correct mentality to have. So don't put too much emphasis on that grade. And I think if you hear this and you understand what I mean, right, then I think being stressed out might not really matter as much, as long as you understand that the consequences are often less scary than you think, right? Because life is surprising in many ways. Okay, but now let's move on to the more technical aspects of some of the tips and tricks that we had when we were students in terms of how we manage our own stress. So Xin Wei, maybe for you, what were some of your stress relievers?
Exercising. I run at night after I'm done with studying. So just a short run. I think scientifically it helps to clear your mind, and it also increase these hormones that counter stress, which is true, right? It really does. So I think that part definitely helps. And then I think I think also giving yourself a lot of breaks, for me, I think definitely I feel worry, and I also what Darrell said, afraid of consequences. I think as human, we definitely think far. That's why we feel the stress. But I think every time I see myself going into that, maybe you should shift your cognitive focus. When you start thinking what if this, what if that, there are what if, which means that you will never know until it happens. So what if is it's almost irrelevant lah. So when you are thinking about that, maybe you should shift your perspective to what can I do now. I think that shift of focus could help you to be distracted, or just don't think of something that could make you more stressed. Yes. Other than that, snack make you feel good as well. It also increase the same hormone.
I used to do this, right, whereby I put a gummy bear, right, there, on the table. So every time I hit a certain part of the note, I can eat a gummy bear.
Nice.
Yeah, but man, what? But that was a lot of sugar. But that's life. Okay, I think for me, exercise helped too. Something that I realized was that when I was in JC studying A levels, right, wow, I didn't exercise much, and my body was so used to the exercising because I was used to exercising 4 to 5 times a week. Then suddenly nothing at all, right? My body kept falling sick, and once I fall sick, right, I'm the kind that I can't study at all. So I think exercising is not just to manage stress, but also to take care of your health and to ensure that you are in a good condition. Now, having said that, for myself, I always have a protected time, which is the time that at night, no matter what happened, I'm just going my own show. Nobody can touch me. This is my outlet. I think that's also important. And I think one very good way to manage stress is also to talk about it, right? To read penning down in your diary, or you have a secret blog or whatever, or even just speaking to your close friends, which I think are all going through a similar phase. I think airing it out rather than bottling it in does matter in terms of helping you manage your stress. I know that you might not have readily access to sort of a therapist or anybody, but I think something that would help definitely is to let it out, right? So this is a generic advice that I think works for everyone. Now, something else I'd like to share here is the power of study buddies. I think doing anything in a group together is always easier than doing it alone, right? So if you have a group of friends to study with, I know there's restrictions now. You can't study in bigger groups, but be it via Zoom or just on your group chat, just to keep everybody in check and motivated together. Screw A levels, we are going for you. Then you're just chong, countdown, things like that. Whatever to keep your mentality up, because on some days you're going to feel down, right? But on those days, that's when you count on your friend to pick you up. And when your friend is feeling down, that's when you are there for them as well, right? So don't discount the people that is in this journey along with you. Strive to all do well together, but of course not to get jealous of one another when they do well. In fact, be happy for them, right? But as you embark on this journey together, I think those will be some of the most stressful yet fond memories you might create, right? Forged in those periods of hardness. Yeah. So I think that in itself is quite amazing. And before I move on to the last segment, right, I just wanted to share this rather deep theory, but let's see if you guys can get it. For me, the way to manage stress is to understand your purpose. Now, when I say that, right, it sounds like what so vague, right? Okay, what I mean by this, when I say purpose, right, go beyond your score, right? Go beyond your L1 R5 you're looking for, your rank point. Think bigger. Think beyond your career. Think beyond the course you want to enter in uni. Think about what you want to achieve in life and what kind of person you want to grow up to be. I know that sounds very vague, but all I'm saying here, right, is that at this point in your life, your O level and your A level might seem like the biggest hurdle ever. And honestly, it's not an easy hurdle having gone through it myself. But I think beyond that, right, don't be too worried about this hurdle, because if you think further in terms of what you hope to achieve in life, is it to help people? Is it to inspire people? Then you realize, honestly, this is just another hurdle, right? That maybe what I want to do is to inspire others. So I'm hoping to do is to do well and to get into, or maybe I give you a more tangible one. If my purpose in life is to save lives, right? That means, oh, I want to aim for straight A's, go to medicine, right? But there's nothing stopping you from saving people, even if you're not a doctor, right? There's so many other fields you could enter, and so many other maybe initiatives and projects you could build. So that can save lives too. So I think there's a very fixation on grades slash path in life kind of thing. But I think if you truly understand your purpose in life, then it really solves a lot of that stress, because you realize that this doesn't really matter. This is just part of where I'm going towards. Yeah, I know this might sound a bit deep, especially for our younger listeners, but what I'm hoping to share here is just think bigger, think broader, right? Because as long as we are very fixated, once we are very fixated on our viewpoint on like this is it, right? You might really get very stressed out because you're going down a rabbit hole. But all I'm trying to do is just spread your perspective a little wider and think further. And you realize that actually life isn't that bad, right? That you have to be so stressed about, right? You live in a safe country, you have a decent enough education system, you have awesome tutors speaking to you through this podcast. Life is great. Okay. But yeah, I think that is something that I wanted to share about purpose. And then once you figure that out, you realize that life is great.
I want to add on to that. I think maybe purpose is a very deep word, like very difficult word to understand. I mean, I don't know. Darrell, are you like fully aware of your purpose? I feel like I'm not yet. But another way of thinking is that if let's say whoever is listening now, you are feeling a lot of stress, I think another question you can ask yourself is that what is the source of the stress now? Like, does the source of stress come from yourself, like your expectation for yourself, or this stress comes from like society telling you that you need to get your straight A's to be considered like a good student? If that, okay, I don't know if parents listen to this podcast, but or is it your parents who are telling you that you need to get your A's, right? And I think the source of stress would tell you how to solve this stress. If it is yourself, then okay, it's either you have to like do something about it, or you shift your focus, right? Like because but I always like I want to be very good. Then like, so then you, like what Darrell said, like, why do you want to be very good? And does this good means that you must get straight A's? And if the source of stress is that your teacher or the society in general is like, if you are not straight A's, you are not a worthy student, then you have to like address like, who are they even? Who is this society thing? Like what they say, is it necessarily correct? Or you can just like choose to tune out their voice, because you don't even know what this society thing is, right? Like they tell you that straight A's means that only when you get straight A you are worthy. That I don't think so. Like I think you can totally tune out their voice, because they are not that important.
I think that is really, really good advice. I think you phrased it much better than I could. But I think just to rephrase what you said, right? I think it's also about letting go of expectations. Expectations of what people have of you, expectations of what you have of yourself, expectations of what society have of you. I think the moment you get rid of these expectations, you realize that actually stress is really it's something that you create for yourself. That is very psychological, and it's something that you could really do without and be much happier. I really wanted to touch on a point on like what society defines as success, right? And I think this is super, super true for Singapore. And I mean, I don't blame you if you feel that way, because that's what you've been told, right? That all your life, that the A student is good student, study hard, right? But hey, why don't let academics define you? You are more than your grade. That's for sure. I can tell you that for sure, right? So, grades are merely just grades, right? They don't mean much, right? Beyond the fact that it is sort of like the education system in terms of how it's structured, right? Moving on. But you realize it's going to be an endless moving on, right? I give you an example. O level, you do well, A level. A level, uni course, you need to do well to get a good job. Good job, you need to do well to get a promotion. Promotion, then you next promotion. It never ends. You need to realize that life is an endless cycle because of the expectations of what society set for you, right? So I think what's really important is for you to learn to understand yourself and also just being yourself. I think that sounds a bit deep once again, but I think I think letting go of those expectations and understanding your purpose could really help you let go of that unnecessary stress.
Okay. Like, I would rather your stress come from yourself, like the expectation you set for yourself, but you question this expectation. Like, why do I set this kind of expectation for myself? Like, is it because I've always gotten like at least this grade for my past exam? So for O level, I'm aiming for at least this grade, but not fall below it. But not like because society tell you you must get A1 or your parents tell you must get A1, things like that. Yeah.
I think just don't be too narrow-minded on the way you define success. I think success is much varied than just academics, right?
For sure.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is about character. A lot of it is also about care and love for other people and stuff. There's too much lah, right? I know in Singapore it is a thing, but I mean really try not to go down that rat race. I think that is a topic for another day, but at least for now, as you're trying to manage your stress, just realize that a lot of these expectations, you can let it go. And the moment you let it go, you realize that life isn't that bad. Okay, now, but I just wanted to jump back from this very philosophical debate back to more of technical stuff, all right, in terms of dilemma of the week. Okay, Xin Wei, is it okay, right, for a student to take an entire day of break when studying? Like entire day, like I don't want to study, I just take a break. Is that okay right now before the exams?
Okay, it will be a 2-sentence answer. Yes, if you have been working very hard for the previous days and you are on track, I think yes, for sure. No, if you are not on track and it is okay to like not study like 8 hours, 10 hours, right? But I think if you're not on track, then at least you try to clock some effective hours every day. That would be great. Yeah. But if you're on track, I think one whole day, take that break, man. Yeah, you deserve that.
I think my answer to that is that it's okay to take a whole day of break if you're feeling burnt out, like you feel like mentally you're not in the right space, then I think it's more than okay to take that break just to regroup yourself and to get yourself back together. But I don't think it's okay if it's just an excuse. To me, there's a huge difference between a reason and an excuse. If you need to go and think of something, that means it's an excuse already. You're trying to come up with a way to avoid the problem, right? I dread studying, that's why I'm going to avoid it. Then that is bad because that is doing no justice to yourself. You're not doing a service to yourself. You're just escaping from the problem, right? But if you're talking about the fact that you feel burnt out, you acknowledge that there's underlying too much stress for you, that you're not in a good state anymore, then I think that's a strong enough reason for you to take a break. So I think at the end of the day, you need to consider whether you are trying to make an excuse for yourself because you're a procrastinator and you're lazy and whatever, or is it that you really have a reason why you need this? Of course, it's entirely subjective. And I think at this point, right before your exam, time is of the essence, but as we always preach, take care of yourself first. I think that's more important than anything else. Okay, but just to wrap off this session, maybe Xin Wei, I just wanted to ask you for your most stressful moment in your entire education journey. When was it and how do you deal with it? I just wanted to end off more on a personal note, like with our own stories.
Oh, this is like super personal because I don't think I've ever shared this on like the Overmark context, is that I'm not Singaporean, I'm Malaysian. So I came to Singapore when I was 14 years old. And when I came here, I was in a neighborhood school. So it was like kind of like a way for me to come to Singapore to study, right? So I was in a neighborhood school, and that neighborhood school is like neighborhood school, bottom like 10 school maybe. And then after Sec 2, that first year, I transferred to TKGS. So I went to TKGS at Sec 3. And Sec 2 to Sec 3, you would think that not much difference, right? But because that Sec 2 was in the neighborhood school, and TKGS is a pretty good school. So that Sec 3 was like different thing. Like we learned totally different things. Like the Sec 2 level and the Sec 3 level was too different, right? So when I first transferred to TKGS, that was crazy. Like everything, like the teacher would say that, oh yeah, these are the things that you guys learn in lower Sec. But I swear I have never learned that in my previous school. So those days were dark days. And I think it was damn stupid because it's something that's super simple now, which is like chemical formula. And I think when I was doing that chemical formula thing, like the dot and cross diagram and like forming chemical formula, then I just couldn't do it because I never learned before. But the teacher was like, okay, this is a revision from year 1 and 2, Sec 1 and 2. And I'm like, this is not a revision for me. So I cried. And then don't know how to do. But then I think I eventually figured out, and chem became my one of my strongest subjects. Yeah, so it does happen. Crying or cry, just cry. Cry already, then continue doing.
I think for me, I think I shared this multiple times, but it was definitely during my A-level period. I think I don't know whether it was this podcast or the previous one, but I told you all that like I was bottom 10 percentile in school. Then that was really stressful in the sense that because I did very well for my O's in my own for my own expectations. So I thought that I could replicate the same formula for O's for A's, right? Just chunk the last 6 months. So I tried to do that, and then I realized I wasn't improving. Like it was more difficult than I thought, right? Last time at O level, I could read the notes and I get it. Now I read the notes and I don't get it. And that was like super stressful. And if you're talking about subjects like H2 math, some of it just don't make sense. Like whatever is imaginary number, it doesn't make sense. E-math was like, wow, pieces of cake. Like I was good at math. Suddenly I went to JC, I felt like I didn't get math at all with all the functions and stuff. Then that was really a very low period whereby I kind of like lost a lot of my confidence, especially now that all my CCA and activities were removed. I felt like very stripped off all of what I identify myself as. And when I just look at myself objectively as a student, then I was like, maybe I shouldn't have done those. I should have just paid more attention not say pay more attention in class. I tried to, but I was so tired that I keep falling asleep in class. So, or in lectures. So it's like, it was very like a traumatizing period that even right now, if I try to recall, I can barely recall it because it was just a very dark period whereby it was really just very stressful. Every day I was just thinking, how do I catch up? How do I catch up and stuff? The good news for me is that eventually I did well enough in my A-levels to get to the course I wanted to. But that's not discounting that tough journey that I think a lot of students have to go through. And if you're an A-level listener right now taking your A-levels, just know that you're not alone and you're not the first. Whatever you're going through right now, it's normal. And I think not to say that you should embrace it or whatever, but just realize that everybody's going through a similar phase. Right, that A-levels was not meant to be easy. I think if there's any light or any advice I could give is that tough times don't last, but tough people do. Right, I did not give up. I just doubled down and just pushed through harder than I did before, and I think the outcome turned out okay. Right, that I eventually still got to where I wanted to get to, even though that period was tough. But I think what I wanted to share here is that you might be currently at your toughest, darkest period, and it feels like nothing will get better, right? The road ahead is just dark. You don't see any light. But trust me, just keep pushing through. Eventually, right, it will come, right? That moment, the light or the dusk, the dark is the what is it? Xin Wei, do you know?
The night is the darkest before the day comes, something like the light comes.
Yeah, the
like
dawn
that.
or the dusk. Clearly we don't have our
Yeah.
shit together because it's now
Yeah.
like 12:30 midnight, but we're here trying to really give you the advice that hopefully in whatever way could help you. Know that people have been there, done that. We have been through this darkest time as well. But pick yourself up, don't give up, right? Giving up is like not being good to yourself, because when you give up and you look back and you're like, I wish I didn't give up, right? So one of my most I think most real, heartfelt advice that I could give you right now is that no matter how stressed out you feel you are, just know that you're stronger than that. Like legit, you are built stronger than that. Don't let external things, don't let pressure press you down and suppress you, because you are going to be great, right? You are going to be fine, right? You are better than that. When you step into the exam hall, have no worries, just do your best and just be the best version of yourself. I think that is the most comforting thing you can say to yourself. Xin Wei, do you have any maybe heartfelt message you want to shout out to our students?
I think I don't want to glorify like pain, but I feel like I think the future you will thank the today you, like the hard work that you are putting in. And if this period is really, really tough, like what Darrell said, right? It's like you feel like things will never get better. But I assure you, like, some time down the road, you'll look back and you'll be like, I made it here. Yeah. So, and during this process, don't forget to breathe.
Yeah. Don't forget to be kind to yourself, Don't be too hard on yourself too, Even if the day didn't pan out according to your study plans, maybe just like be a bit annoyed with yourself, but don't be too harsh on yourself. Life is too short for you to hate yourself. Learn to embrace yourself, but of course self-discipline is important. Okay, and with that, we come to the end of today's podcast. We hope that whatever we shared, our own stories, help you in whatever way to get rid of a bit of that stress before your exam. If you're listening to this on YouTube, okay, please subscribe and follow us on Spotify, and also drop us a like, so that our content can reach more people. But I think at the end of the day, exams are coming just right around the corner, and we hope you do well. And remember to take care of yourself, everyone out there.
Yes, rest well, sleep more, get more sleep, get good food, and get more sleep. Survival mode. That is the survival mode that you need.
It sound right, boy.